Welcome to the College of Knowledge. This time, the future of banking. With extensive experience in the banking industry, he has served as the Group CEO of ABC Holdings Limited and has also served as Managing Director of FMB and Heritage. Here is Douglas Munatsi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I didn't need to prepare a presentation because it was going to be a conversation. But in any event, I'm really encouraged and really thrilled to be here and to be meeting up with all of you, young mostly. So my presentation, in my conversation, I want to talk about rebooting the Zimbabwe entrepreneurship culture, or rebooting entrepreneurship in Zimbabwe. I thought about the many different things that one can talk about, but I thought, well, perhaps we could just be on the edge of real change in our country. And that change perhaps requires some of us who have been around, who saw things differently, who went through the tough times of, instability and all that, and then hopefully we can make some suggestions on the next generation of entrepreneurs on what it is to do and not to do. So November 14, 2017 is an interesting date. It's exactly 20 years after Black Friday. 20 years is actually a long time if you want to see how things have really gone wrong and what has happened over time. So before that, there was a wave of institutional change and what I call maybe the modern day entrepreneurial phase. So what do I mean? I mean, our big brother, Nick Vingirai, started a discount house. The National Merchant Bank, then came us, Kingdom, Trust. Some of these names you don't know because some of them don't exist anymore. The building societies, Francis Nema with Zimbabwe Building Society, the finance houses, Jeff Ngweni with Leasing Company and Moses Chingwena. Telecoms, actually, Econet started around that time. There's an anecdotal thing about Econet because Pastor Tom, Nigel, Jeff Ngweni, I can't remember who else was there, walk into my office and say, is it possible the employees of Econet haven't been paid for the last 2 months, or how many months it was, I can't remember. That is before Econet was licensed. Please, can you do something? Anyway, long story short is that, we organized for the payment of those salaries that were, accruing. So why am I talking about all these things? Because that wave of, you can also talk about the media. I remember Trevor Ngule coming to me and saying to me, I don't own anything in Fingas, but I want to be a shareholder. Long story short, he owns now all the newspapers. He's the publisher. He's been successful. But he walked into my office with not even a cent. We structured things for him. I can tell you so many stories. I think what was instructive about that era is that it allowed us to dream, to be able to do things, to create things with our own hands. I'd never dreamed when I grew up in Fagos that I could actually start a bank. Really, please. But I remember during those days that every weekend, or if it allowed us, we would spend time in town, checking out where the best suits were in town, what was, even if we couldn't afford. We knew barbers left, right, and center, even if we didn't have a cent in our pockets. We were ambitious, we dreamed, we aspired for things. Not to steal, not to do anything wrong, but to do it right. So why am I telling you? Because I think that era of Zimbabwean entrepreneurship, which was stifled in November 1497, is instructive of the progress that we had made. So why am I saying that? I think that we were ahead of Nigeria, we were ahead of Kenya, we were ahead of Black South Africa. Why do I say that? Because when Doug Mboweni was in Nigeria with Econet before they got booted out by their partners, they were bigger than MTN. Today, MTN in Nigeria is one of the biggest, the second biggest operation of MTN South Africa globally. I mean, it just tells you how big Econet could have been. I remember I remember meeting a guy. He says to me, "Oh, I know about Zimbabwe." He would say me a few Shona words. I said, "Oh, how do you know?" He says, "Well, I run the first, one of the larger discount houses in Nigeria. So I spend a lot of time in Zimbabwe learning on how to run a discount house with Intermarket." So Nick had invested in their discount house, and they didn't have a discount house in Nigeria. And this is how. But fast forward today, that discount house is bigger than most of the banks here. And Kenya, I remember in 2005, going to visit there, one of the brokers says to me, we're chatting about a whole lot of things, says to me, "I can organize for you to buy Equity Bank, the whole thing, 50 million, if you're willing, if you're able. I can organize." Equity Bank is one of the largest banks in Kenya now, listed, market cap is over $1 billion. But if I had a check of 50 million, we could have bought it. I remember going to my board 2002, 3, or 2002, wanting to buy Letseko in Botswana. And the board said to me, "No, focus, blah, blah, blah." One of the members of the board was a bit unethical. But anyway, that's for history to do. Today, Letseko is bigger than most of the banks here. I remember one of my friends who used to work for UBS called me and says to me, there's a bank in Cape Town, which is owned by some guys in Cape Town. Do you want to buy it? I said to him, "What is that?" Capitec, which is owned by PSG, controlled by PSG. So why am I saying this? Because if somebody would think about us at that time to buy businesses in all these markets, we were really, really very advanced and way ahead. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that as we hopefully enter a new era, I think that there's an opportunity for that spirit of entrepreneurship again to find itself. Now, because part of the problem is that everybody thinks entrepreneurship is trading, currency. That is not it. Because when the reality sets, it's hard work. You're all young, so you know this gentleman called, I believe he's a politician, called Drake. What does he say? You started at the bottom, yeah? There's no substitute for that. And I think it's very important that as we all prepare ourselves, hopefully, I keep saying that, but we position ourselves to really do things that are going to be transformative, things that are going to be really impacting our country. An entrepreneur, interesting, I'm sure because you're all, internet gurus and all those things, I'm sure you can find a million definitions and what have you. But fundamentally, it's somebody who, not for money, but because they really believe in making change, in creating change, in solving problems, set out to create the solutions. That is really a true entrepreneur. And so that is really, I think, an opportunity that we all have. Cash shortages, all these things. There are so many things that we can fix and address. Today, Israel, a country of less than 9 million people, is a leader worldwide in startups. You all know them, right? And you all want them to start them, right? Do an app here, sell it to Google, become a billionaire. Most of those things are really driven out of Israel. Without talking about the politics of the country and remaining straight and confessing that, what I know, but what I don't know belongs to the Lord our God. Israel is actually desert mostly, but is the net exporter of food. We could sell them our country, and they could create, I don't know how many, So the point I'm making is that I think the period that we saw where we felt that I can actually run a bank, I can actually run a leasing company, a discount house. The next thing we can go, we went in 2000 to Botswana when the central bank was very suspicious. They would, not treat us as, other bankers. But by the time we were flying, they were so proud of us because we had demonstrated to them. In fact, people will tell you now, and I think it's a common talk, all Botswanas are lazy. I tend to differ. We went there and we said, we'll plant our own trees. We started recruiting guys from university, training them and so forth, and they are just as good as all of us, believe me. So don't believe all that. And that is also because we believed in people, hiring the best, giving opportunity to, the most exceptional people. But don't think it's easy, eh? We have sleepless nights. Failure is a possibility. I remember 2003, 4. Even our directors had never heard something called a gap in a bank. Because currency is going, right? Everything is going crazy. And now you are faced with a position where you say, okay, and part of the reason why some of our friends who didn't make it out of the crisis is because they tried to address the problem, but the problem addressed them, and they didn't make it. So the point I'm trying to make is that we woke up and we found that we had a gap. Our assets were fewer than the liabilities that we had. Or rather, more technically, our assets were more short-dated than the liabilities that we had. And therefore, overnight, you're out of business. Because, during 2008, somebody said, it doesn't matter how solvent you are, but if you are illiquid, you can sell anything for nothing. Yeah? So those things helped us to understand that this process, entrepreneurship, is a long slog. You work hard, you've got sleepless nights. I'm reminded again of that famous islander, Bob Marley. He says, my fear is my only courage. Eh? So fear of failure becomes your only way of staying. It's not like our kids, right? He says, no, I didn't finish the assignment. Why? Oh, because I just didn't have time. We would be awake all night until the assignment is done because you just cannot fathom the result. And so I'm saying, in all the things that you can choose to do, and I think minds and brains in here can change this country, you have to understand that it starts from the bottom. It's a long slog. It's incremental. It has got pitfalls. It's got challenges. But you know what? I really believe that Zimbabwe is endowed with amazing, amazing spirit, skills, and what have you. And we really can create a completely new class, a new culture of entrepreneurship. It's not dealing and doing these things. Trading, yes, it's for the time. But the reality is that you got to do things that are tangible, that are real, and which are tough to make. Thank you all for listening to me. My time is up.